I remember calling several different businesses and like, do you want a website? And it was almost like a Jack in the Box experience, which I didn't introduce myself. I didn't say who I was. I didn't go in person. Like the basis of networking and not being weird. It took me a little to get over. Hey guys, we're back with another video once again. And along the topics that we're going to talk about today is fear and failure. I think in any new endeavor, there's going to be these two existing components, and really I want to dig in a little bit deep into that and share just a few personal stories that may help out with you all. So once again, just tune in on this, hit the bell notification so you don't miss out, the subscribe. Really, one of the things I think in any new thing that you start, whether it be an endeavor, career, business, or even a hobby, what exists in the back of our minds is, the fear of failure, and both of those components separately. I was actually doing a study that I read that was really interesting that says that the average adult, so 18 and over, has about 50,000 thoughts a day. And out of those 50,000, 40,000 of those are negative thoughts, which, wow. If you start thinking about it, that's a majority of it. A majority of your thoughts are negative. It's not like, oh, things are going to go great today. Things are going to be the best ever. And I think that's a mindset change that has to happen, because if you expect things to go wrong, things are going to go wrong. One of my favorite books, once again, The Best Instructions Before Leaving Earth, there's a story where this man quotes, "And the things I feared came to pass." So if you know who I'm talking about, go ahead and comment this character of this book that I'm talking about and this personality. But really, let's define both fear and failure, because I think it means different depending on perspective. For me, fear means false evidence appearing real, right? Because really, whenever you talk about fear, it's things that we either over dramatize that make it way worse than it actually is, or things that we don't have enough information or data to actually properly assess, analyze, or really have a concrete information over in order to make a decision about that. So that's what I would say fear is. As far as failure, I think most people define failure, and especially the way our education system is if you get a below average grade, right? Whether it be a D or F or wherever it may be, or you miss your goals. And one of the things I'll share is, at least in my experience, most of my goals, I don't reach within the certain amount of time that I desire. Now, do I consider that a failure? Not really, because I'm moving one step closer to that goal. I'm moving one step closer to accomplishing what I want, and I'm getting better. Because imagine if you start from ground zero, in order for you to reach that finish line, well, if you've never done it, how do you expect to be good? It's almost like comparing, let's say, a professional athlete to an elementary kid trying to play a sport. There's a world of difference. There's experience, there's reps, and different things like that, right? And then the other thing is what's compounding. So how are you working towards that each day? There's another book that I love that's called The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. And one of the quotes that have stayed with me, that's resonated with me a lot, is small, smart choices plus consistency over time equals a radical difference. So it's really the small choices that you're making on a daily basis that's going to help you reach that. So it's, I've started quite a few endeavors. I was thinking about this yesterday. And I think I started my first business at 18. I didn't remember about this, but it was going to be a website development business. And I remember there was a franchise that I bought into. It wasn't that much back then. And I remember, yes, I know how to build websites, and I'm going to make this, and I'm going to earn great money, and I'm not going to have to work a job and whatnot. I had actually forgotten about this because of how bad it went. So whenever I bought in, I'm like, okay, have the website, I have the skills, I know what to do, but then I'm like, where are my clients going to come from? And whenever I started talking to, the people that ran the franchise and several different things, they're like, well, you have to cold call. I'm like, well, as an 18-year-old, I'm like, what do you mean cold call? They're like, yeah, you're going to have to call different businesses and offer them to build a website. And at 18 years old, I was so nervous. to pick up the phone and to make a cold call, and they even try. But I remember doing that. And after 10 calls of doing the same and no one was interested, I just got so disappointed and so sad, because I'm like, man, no one wants, a website. No one wants for me to help them. Like, this is much more difficult. But I didn't realize that the components of a business took more than simply having the skill set or tools to do it. Because I think many people have great ideas, or they're great at what they do. Like, I know many people that can cook excellent. Like, their food is the best, and they want to start a restaurant, but they don't understand the components to start a restaurant, right? And I think that's really where faith comes in, because whatever you do is going to require faith in whatever aspect you want to define that in. And it's going to require for you to take action in order to get closer to whatever you're trying to accomplish. So going back to the story, I gave up. After, I think it was 200 calls. And I got a little bit better, and I even had some presentations. Believe me, after the first 15 calls and seeing like, that no one wanted, I'm like, okay, something's up. It's either them or me. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's me. I need to develop a skill set. So one of the things I recommend is really think about what skills you currently have and how you can elevate them in order to not just to be able to say, I'm an excellent cook, or I'm an excellent mechanic, or I'm an excellent plumber, but really, what are the other components that you're unfamiliar with in order to start a business or a side hustle, or to do whatever you want to, right? And I think that's one of the most attractive things that a franchise can provide, because franchise typically provides two things. One is an education system, and the other one is a supplier. That's why buying a McDonald's is so lucrative, because yes, it's a multi-million-dollar investment, but they offer you going over to Hamburger University, where you can go there and really study how to, flip burgers, how to run the business, how to make sure that the ice cream machine never works. And you come back, and then they provide you a supplier, which they deliver the food and all that, to the point where the owner isn't there flipping burgers, right? But he has a system. And that's another thing I'll talk about, because with failure and fear, I think the quicker you are to create a system, the quicker you are to overcome that failure and fear. And the more you fail forward, the better you is. And I think, going back to another conversation, that's why having people that have already done what you've done is so important. Because here's a question for everybody, and I think the answer's pretty obvious, is would you rather go behind or in front of somebody in a minefield? I think the obvious answer would be behind, right? Because you see where they step and what happened there. So that's another thing to consider right there. And I think not being scared to fail, to experience that. Because at the end of the day, if you don't quit, I don't consider it a failure. I think it's moving towards another way of not learning. I know the famous quote of Thomas Jefferson, and really identifying how to build a light bulb, right? And he just found 999 ways not to do it. Or if you read Abraham Lincoln's story, and really how much the man failed, but he became one of the most successful presidents in the world. And I think all of that really has to do with, okay, am I willing to learn? Am I willing to actually go through something? Am I willing to think? I need to develop how to think. And I'm not saying that many people don't think. Simply, it's a thought process, right? What's your perspective on different things? What's your perspective on, if I can't figure out, do I fail? Because my 18-year-old perspective and thought process was that this business doesn't work. Rather than, hey, I need to improve what I'm doing because I don't have the skill set in order to do that. And so that's another thing I would highly recommend, is reading books. Really, if you study some of the most successful people, they're constantly reading books. One of the other things I found out really quick is most of the homes that are worth millions of dollars, all of them have one thing in common, several. Not only they're expensive, but they also have a library for a reason. And so reading books are going to help you. They're going to develop you, because a lot of these books, these authors took so much time, whether it be 5, 10, 15 years of experience to gather this data and information that you can purchase for 20, 30, 40, $50 and gain all that experience just from reading from their perspective. So once again, just to recap, one is fear, false evidence appearing real. So as I said in another video, I think action cures fear, is doing it. Once you find out and you do something, you know it's not that scary. Once you've been on that first roller coaster, you're like, hey, this isn't that bad. And so really putting yourself in a position that you can overcome fear, I think is one of the most important things, is just taking a leap of faith. Because if you're going to bet on anyone, it should definitely be you. Second thing is failure. Failure is not failure unless you give up and unless you quit. Third thing is really building a system that you can identify that you will be able to actually develop something where you can accomplish what you're going after. So hopefully that helps all of you. We'll be doing more of these car talks, and just comment down below some of the biggest fears that you have about any career, any endeavor, any business that you started, and really how you're overcoming that. So once again, my name is Cokis, and talk to you soon.